Hi, Richard.
Hello.
Richard, that is. Obviously, we haven't just been hilariously laughing off camera before this one started.
We didn't.
With things you're not allowed to say on today's podcast.
I better go now then, Tilly.
Yeah, that's it. Cut this one short. Did you have a nice break?
Yes, thank you. It was very nice.
Good.
Very warm, very sunny. Nice place to visit as well.
It's Croatia, you were.
Went on a day trip to Dubrovnik because it was like, 35 minutes in a taxi there, and then got the boat back. And it's nice, Dubrovnik, don't get me wrong, but the old city is not all that big. And I think they're suffering, or should I say benefiting from the influence of Game of Thrones. Was apparently a lot of it was filmed there. And I didn't really watch any of Game of Thrones.
I've never watched
I think I watched 2 episodes and went, what the chuff is this? And then gave up. So, and you can see the impact of it. But it's like an oven as well. At 9:30 in the morning, we got there early, right? And because of all the high walls, whitewashed walls and stuff, and the sun comes in, and then you go around one street, and it's very pretty. And you're going, this is quite cool and shady. You go around the corner where the sun's been in, it's like the heat's just radiating. You're like, holy Christ almighty, this is like a furnace. But no, it's very nice. No,
I'm fine in dry heat. So when I went to Vegas about 4 years, just after COVID, went to Vegas. Or COVID was still about because I actually got it in Vegas.
My laugh, sorry.
And that was in the mid-40s. And there was a gentle breeze. And you know when you open the oven door to check how your spuds are doing, and you get hit by that blast. It was like that walking down the street.
Potatoes, right.
Potatoes. Yeah, it was like that. But I'm fine in that. But then I'll go 30 degree where it's a bit humid, and I'm literally just like, whoosh. I need to take 3 t-shirts with me to keep them on rotation as I get through the day. It's lovely. Nothing better than looking at a slightly overweight bloke sweating walking down the street, is there? Yeah. Absolutely no control over what's going on.
Have a nice swim. I haven't been in the sea yet. Okay.
So I'm fine. I'm going to Vegas instead. Going where it's ridiculously hot rather than medium hot.
I get that.
And I'm fine. But anyway, let's talk data.
Oh,
and we're going to talk a little bit today about data overwhelm and when too much data can obviously impact you. And I'm going to talk about my least favourite bit of data that's currently banging its way around the internet. Lots of people talking about it. And I'm going to apologise first, Richard. I'm going to apologise to Deborah, who listens to this, because I'm going to use a football analogy and she hates football. So she might want to fast forward the next.
Nothing like setting our opinion to our audience.
Absolutely, appealing straight to them. I've name checked her though. She should be happy with that. And then we'll hit fast forward for Deborah for about 3 minutes, and you'll be fine. We'll be out the other side. But the one that's doing the rounds at the moment is XG, or expected goals, and it's almost like the most useless bit of data there is. But people rave about it. And it's like, our XG was this and theirs was this. And it's like, but you lost 3-1. So your XG is completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
That's wonky data for you.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how many the system has said they expected you to score. There's always anomalies. There's keepers who have incredible games. There's deflections. There's, I think, was it Darren Bent that scored when he shot and it hit a beach ball?
Yeah.
And it bounced and went in. All these things happen.
XG that.
XG that, exactly. That would have been a low one. But it's almost like, well, we've collected all this data, we've got it all, what do we do with it? Let's invent a new statistic that we'll try and force everyone to talk about. And you're kind of like, well, even if you did get into all those positions and possession, I'm going to go back to Leicester winning the title, because possession football is another one that people have started talking about. There's nothing boring about Leicester winning the Premier League, Richard.
People still remember that.
They'll still be talking about it in 100 years because they'll still be playing this podcast. But we didn't have any possession. most games we were like 30-35% possession, and we're still winning games. And yet the other night I was watching a game and they're going, "You don't win games without the ball." It's like, yeah, well, you do. You win titles without the ball.
Mm.
So I just think there's something around sort of data overwhelm, and we've got lots of data, and people talk about big data and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, do you actually know what you're trying to do with it, or are you collecting it and then sitting there and going, "Oh, we could come up with this, or we could invent this, or we could do a new way." But ultimately, football is how many goals did you score, did you win, and how many points did you get, and that. So talking about expected goals might be something nice that you can sit and talk about in training or something. Go, it says in our data you should have scored 3 goals and you only scored 2, or if you're Haaland, you should have scored 10 and you only scored 3.
Just 10.
Missed a couple of sitters there, Erlen. But the actual output, the thing that is driving you as a business or driving you as a football team is, did you win the game? Did you score the goals or not? Not did you expect to? And I think that's a key kind of thing that a lot of businesses get into as well, where it's, well, we should have done this, but this is actually what we did. And how do you kind of cope with some of that, where you are collecting big data or small data or medium data, if there's actually a category of that?
There is now.
Yeah, let's make it up. What do you do with that stuff, and how do you stop yourself from like using it for the sake of using it because you've got it?
Yeah, there's a lot of that though, isn't there? There's a lot of, you look at a lot of what a business will do and they report stuff, and you're going, what's the point?
Yeah.
What's that impacting? You know, what's it driving? What decision is it supporting? What are you doing with it? Like XG, I guess it's more. Although I agree with you, but from they're obviously producing it from an audience perspective that the audience like to see it. So from the producers of it, at the data's point of view, it makes sense to produce it because people ingest it. Does it help them make a decision? Maybe not, but it's not from a consumer's perspective. You can understand why they would produce it if people like it, and I get that. But I don't know, there is another story about this, because obviously being a Man City fan, before they were good, and they were very shit as well, by the way. Yeah, I got family up there, so it's fine. There's a story of Kevin De Bruyne, right? He renegotiated one of his contracts, and one of the biggest influences on that discussion was a data analyst, because he then went in armed with these statistics and all this stuff to say how much impact and influence he had over the team, and how better so he quantified his output and his influence to negotiate his contract, rather than just going, I'm worth this much amount of money. Why? Well, because I've done this or I've done that. Or so his wider performance and impact on the team was used to make a decision around what he did with the contract. That's a prime example of using it to make a decision and to go into a discussion fully armed with the fact that you know exactly how much you're worth. And
I'd have a conversation where someone went in and went, "I'm worth this because my XG is really high," and they went, "How many goals did you score?" They went, "None."
Yeah, 2.
Get out. Yeah.
My XG, I scored 2 goals in 2 games, but I didn't play again for the rest of the season because I was shit. So my XG is 1. Oh, great! Give me 300 grand a week. Thanks very much. But yeah, it's true, isn't it? You've got. I think I put a post out this morning saying, and we spoke about it before, is that there's so much you use and create so much data as an individual, so much so that you probably don't even realize that you're consuming it and making a decision based on it. But in a business, it's not efficient to just look at absolutely everything, because you get lost. You get lost, and it'll just be you're in the realm of reams and reams of tables of information and charts for chart's sake, and you go, well, what's it actually telling? What's it actually doing? What's the key? And it comes back to something I say a lot, is that what's the key question that you're looking to answer? You have regulatory and statutory reports, finance stuff, profit and loss, etc. You have to produce, and that makes perfect sense. But then the key comes from what's driving that. That's what changes the decision, and not everyone reporting everything that's going on across everything. Because I've said before, you walk into meetings and management they produce this wonderful report pack that's been printed off, and someone walks in and goes, "What do I need to know?" But then that's the key part for your question. What is it you need to know? That then drives what you produce. Not we've got loads of this stuff, and that's not to say that you can't bring it all in. You can't ingest it, or you can't, keep it, archive it, because storage of data is, okay, you might not really need to keep all of it, but you can certainly bring in what is available and then just make available for reporting what is needed to drive those decisions and answer those questions. And whether you keep the rest of it is, it's a decision to be made from a commercial perspective.
Yeah, and I see it as well, Richard, expanding on that a little bit in the world of dashboards as well, where the dashboard has kind of been built by the data team and everything else, but there's nothing on the dashboard that's telling you what you need to do or what you need to change, because, as you said, that core question, the key question, hasn't actually been asked. It's almost like, well, we can take a dashboard from this system, we can take one from that, and we can merge it together. Here's your new dashboard. But if it doesn't tell you anything, or doesn't give you the information, and particularly if you haven't then got the power to make changes, what are you looking at? It's just
3 months later, it won't be used. It'll be sat there, and it'll be. That's why there's such a heavy focus on the technical side of things and the availability of data and chasing the latest buzzword and chasing the latest tech, but you have to not lose sight of what it is you're trying to do, because there is so many options available now technically, and different methods and different ways of doing. You almost get, well, which one do we go for? And then the message, the question, the answer, whatever, the key aim of the project gets lost.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, we've invested in this cloud infrastructure and we've invested in this tool and that tool. What are you doing with it? And it's like, well, it was what was available.
Yeah.
Well, okay, still haven't answered the question.
Yeah, and I see it loads in local government and other systems where your dashboards and that are just part of the system that comes to you as the package, but no one then looks at that and goes, "Is this the right dashboard, the right information? Do we need to update it, edit it, bring something new in?" Or extract it from this system, match it to another system, because it's only when you add, let's say, the finance data into that and put them across, that you then actually get the right insight into what you're looking at, and it then answers the question. I'm concerned you're going to look left in a minute, Richard, and what you're working on is going to blow up again.
It's already blown up, don't worry.
It's already blown up. Yeah. That's fine. We're all waiting for Richard to have a rage on screen, watch him smash his room up as it goes wrong.
It's fine. It's okay. It is what it is. I know what's
going on. It is, isn't it? And I think it's like everything that we kind of talk about. It's understanding kind of like the business needs, the business requirements, and then, like you said, what is the key requirement? What's the key question you're asking of the data? And then going and finding the right data that answers that question for you, even if that means you collect 1,000 different bits of data, but you only actually use 50 of them to give you the answer. That's absolutely fine. It doesn't matter. It's fine, collate it all, but you don't need to present all 1,000. And I've said
it's quite often as well. Yeah, it's where you've got all this in this multitude of dashboards and hundreds of thousands and millions of rows of data. It's quite often a little bit that makes the big difference, is that you suddenly, because this goes back to the balanced scorecard type approach, where you kind of look at what's driving what's driving this, what's driving that, and then suddenly you can identify amongst all the other metrics and headline metrics and outputs and things, you can identify something that go, if we change that if we improve that by 20%, look at the impact on the rest of everything else, because this is the key driver for everything else. So if suddenly, say for example, costs, say your profit dropped.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because your costs have gone up. We're still bringing the revenue still the same. Why? Because our costs have gone up. Okay, well, why have our costs gone up? Well, it's because how soon can you answer that question? How quickly can you answer that question? Is it our materials or something?
Yeah.
No, they're the same. Is it because of there's a delay? It could be anything. It could be anything, right? So it's like once you identify that point, look at the impact it's having on everything else. Because if it's something like suppliers are a bit slower, for example, or it's a bit delayed, that's impacting your cost because you're having to get it from somewhere else, or it's delayed in delivery. It impacts every other aspect of a business operation. Yet it could be one simple thing. Simple is the wrong word. It could be one, as in simple piece of information that you're not monitoring.
You're not looking at, yeah.
And it impacts everything. Not just slightly, it impacts everything. But then how often are you looking at that? How often do you look at that to measure it and to whether actually you can, if you put in a mechanism to actually identify that and watch that, you're cutting off before it becomes an issue. Suddenly everything else, all these other metrics and everything else, performance, which impacts profit at the end of the day, are going to improve.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do think it's, coming back to the XG bit, it's almost like we've got this world of data because we've been now recording Premier League games for 20 years. We've had the Opta guys in, we've got all these stats, we know all this stuff. Therefore, we can start inventing new things. But apart from potentially saying some of your guys need to stand in front of goal for half an hour, kicking the ball at it, see if they can actually put it in the back of the net in training, it to me is just not hugely useful. And like you said, it can get presented and it gets talked about, and people go on and on about it. And you see in reports the same thing. Data presented, information presented, where actually you need a half-page narrative next to it to kind of explain what you're showing. But actually, it still doesn't answer the question.
It's the context question, isn't it? It's the context issue. It's like a number gives you an indication of a number. What does that mean in the context of everything else? It's like you said about, if your XG could be 1, whatever the phrase, well, 1 per game, but you only played 2 games and scored 2 goals. The rest of the time you didn't get picked because you were a donkey. And it's like, it doesn't tell the whole picture, does it? It doesn't give you the context. And it's the same as it, like from a defender's point of view. A defender, if they do nothing in a game, are they bad at defending, or are they actually very good at defending? Technically, if a defender does nothing, it means they're probably doing the right thing. Well, if you don't see a defender, then you know he's in the right place at the right. They're in the right place at the right time. They don't need to do anything.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it's like goalkeeper season award. We'll go to like either Edison or Alisson at Liverpool or Man City, and you're going, should be the guy at Burnley because he's the one who's faced the most shots.
He's the one who's got a sore back picking the ball at the back of the net the most.
They only lost 3-0 and it should have been 10-0 because this guy has a world season. Whereas actually, you look at Alisson at Liverpool and he's sat there with 4 world-class defenders in front of him. There shouldn't be any goals. There shouldn't be any shots. He should be a good keeper. And I'm not saying he's not. He's very good at what he does. But in an actual game, great Jordan Pickford plays for England because he's used to having to save things because there's balls coming at him every 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And again, it's putting it into context of all almost like your environment as well. And I had... it was interesting when I worked at Peterborough many, many years ago. We had what was deemed as a homeless problem. And we're not talking massive numbers. I think it was like 12 or 15 people designated as homeless. So this is not homeless, rough sleepers within Peterborough. So it was, we had about 15 or so registered. It was, numbers might be wrong, but it was kind of like, to us, quite high looking at it. And then on the trip to, when I went over to Dreamforce, and you go to California and you go into San Francisco, I was with the guy who was head of housing and looking after that side of stuff. And you were kind of in a wrong wording, but you know what I mean. You're kind of stepping over 15 people to get out of your hotel in the morning, and then the streets that are 100 meters long, where it's just head to foot, head to foot, head to foot, and then you're looking at it going, that's a homeless problem. Ours is tiny and ours is manageable, and we can do something with that. This is on a completely different scale to anything we've seen before. And so it did help put a lot of that in perspective. But people who have never seen that side of the world or not experienced that, to them, 15 is a terrible number. It's far too, and you can argue, yes, it is. It's anything above 1 is far too high. But 15 in a big city compared to probably, I don't know what San Francisco's got, it must be in the thousands of people living there. It's a huge difference between the two. And sometimes you do have to delve into, is the number I'm looking at good or bad? And what's my kind of criteria for calling it that? So there are lots of people who would have shouted 15's horrendous. That's far too high. It needs to be 5 or lower. I can't believe you're not doing your job. And then you look at it and go, well, actually, compared to that, we're doing really well. And we are keeping a lid on it, and the costs are being controlled, and we're in charge, and we know what's happening.
It's things like sales. Sales is always something that I often come across. It's like when you allocate something as, I don't know, say a salesperson has got, they sold 50 one month, and somebody else sells, I don't know, 25, for example. And then everyone tells you to go and, to learn from the person who's selling 50. But what's to say that person is not getting 500 leads and has a 10% conversion rate, yet the guy who's selling the person who's selling 25 is getting 100, and suddenly which one's the better salesperson? And he can't. It's that piece of missing, and I've sold 50. You're walking around ringing the bell, shouting about how great everything is, but what you don't realise is the fact that their conversion rate is not very good, and they may be canning loads of stuff off, behaving inappropriately, yet the person who's selling 25 is the far better salesperson, but doesn't just sheerly churn through the numbers, cherry. You know what I mean? So that context is always missing, and that context is always very, very important to be able to show the number behind what the headline grabbing XG, if you like. Yeah. What does it really mean? What does it really mean? And that's where the nugget, the real goal. Cliches as shit, but that's where the real information is. That's where the real, the real useful stuff is that drives a decision. Do you then, once you know that context, you go, well, actually, you're behaving inappropriately and your conversion rate's shit. You're behaving properly and your conversion rate is really good. So that's the person you should be learning from. But yet you bring everybody to learn from that person, and then lo and behold, you have a team of 20 shark salespeople behaving inappropriately. But then you got into this global context of, if you're not measuring it, you're not managing it, you're not looking at actually your reputational damage is then a problem potentially. Because if you're cold, it's so often such a throwaway piece of information and content. Is like, I don't really care. The numbers are great. Look at the bigger picture changes that narrative completely. And it's like, you have to understand that's the headline number. That's what's influencing it. These are the key things I need to focus on. And that's adds the narrative to that headline grabbing number. What does it really mean?
Yeah. And there's a diagram that's been going around the internet for years with the fighter jets in the Second World War and the ones that returned, and it shows where all the bullet holes are in the wings, and everyone going, well, that's where we need to strengthen. And then someone obviously went, no, these are the ones that are making it back. It's fine being shot there. The ones that aren't coming back are the ones that are shot here. Yeah. The fuselage and stuff, and that's the bit we need to strengthen. And it's so easy, I think, to misinterpret data when you don't, like you said, when we don't understand what the question is or what the criteria or the context is.
Yeah.
and actually understanding, okay, this plane's been shot in the wings a lot, but clearly it can still fly and still make it back. Therefore, we can leave that bit, and we need to look at a completely different section.
It's
And
the same thing about, sorry, it's the same thing about, there's a story about, was it a production line? It's not my story. Someone told me, I read it somewhere, I think, where, is it a toothpaste factory? Where they kept, there was an issue with the boxes going out empty or something like that, right? So they invested all these machines to weigh the boxes. They bought all this software to weigh the boxes, and they bought all these other quality control. It took ages, cost them a lot of money. And then one day they were still having the problem, and they went down to the shop floor, and there was a guy on the production line that had a fan that was blowing their boxes, and it was blowing off the ones, and every single one that was blown off was empty.
Yeah.
So the cost of resolving, but it's about measuring the process, right? So you're measuring the process, you understand where the issue is. The fix doesn't have to be, and it's the same way with big data. You don't have to invest in measuring everything and throbbing everything in and being able to bring everything out and do all this. It's quite often something that can change everything. Is such a simple thing that once you identify it, you go, okay, wow, the impact of this is huge.
Yeah. Turn the fan off.
Turn the fan off.
Turn the fan off. There's the impact. But yeah, funny. I have heard that one as well go around. I'm glad it's not your story.
I'm sorry.
But I think there's lots of them, whether they're even true or not, or whether they're just used as kind of parables to put you on the right path. It doesn't really matter. It's kind of, if you don't understand your data, you don't look at it. And this is why I kind of started with that data overwhelm thing of, it's almost like some places you've so much data that until you've got that narrow focus on what is it we're trying to achieve, and therefore what within this data is useful for us, or even what's not within this data that's useful for us that we should be collecting, that would be useful, it can actually be quite difficult to do stuff with it, because you are just sat there going, I've got loads and loads of data, I can do this, I've built the world's loveliest BI dashboard, everyone's looking at it, but after a week they've all stopped looking at it because it's not actually telling them anything of any use. And I'm wondering why data within our company isn't valued, or the intelligence isn't valued. And it's kind of like, I get the same when it's digital strategies, and I talk about those a lot. It's almost like you've just written a generic document that says we'll do digital a bit better and we'll use our data a bit better. You haven't answered any of the key questions or the key problems that your organization is suffering from, that you're going to address through using digital technology or data or tools. And then they wonder why after 5 years of delivering their strategy, they've actually delivered naff all. And it's like the book, I love, I haven't actually got it with me, it's upstairs.
Is one of yours?
No, it's a proper one by a guy called Keith Cunningham, and it's called The Road Less Stupid.
Not written by ChatGPT.
No, not at all. Mine's not either. Apart from the bit in italics at the start of each chapter. But that doesn't influence the story in any way, shape, or form. To get that out there. But he talks about it a lot, but he has one chapter, and his is about spending time thinking about your business and how you structure thinking time. So although there's lots of chapters, it's not an order. You can read them all in whatever order you want to. They're just individual units. But one of the chapters I really like is called Generalizations Kill Clarity. And it does talk exactly that, of saying things like, we want to do better, or we want to sell more, or we want to do this. And it's like, that doesn't help. More, what's that? £1 more, or £1,000 more, or 5 times more? You haven't put something. The minute you can put kind of some clarity around it and say, actually, this is the exact number we need to achieve next year, then you can work backwards and go, right, what is stopping us from achieving that? And therefore, what do we need to do? And I think it's the same with data and how you use data, is if you've got that absolute clarity of what it is you need to achieve, or what you need to show or the outcome you want to get to, you can work backwards to, right, based on that, this is exactly what we need from a data perspective, or what we need, like we said, what you do have or what you don't have currently, what you might need to add into that. But then also how we present that is naturally aligned to that outcome of achieving X, and therefore it's useful information and useful data that people will use, as opposed to that generalized, here's a dashboard with 7 donuts, 3 pie charts, a bar chart, and a line graph, because I thought it looked better if I used multiple versions of graphs on it that everyone can have a nice look at.
What I'll do is I'll do a chart and I'll change it slightly and show it as a pie chart.
Yeah. The exact same data shown 2 ways, and neither of them are any use to you at all. It's the best way.
Not a Gantt chart then?
No. Or my favourite is a Sankey diagram at the moment.
Oh God.
I love a Sankey. Just because no one's ever heard of it, no one knows how to do them.
I call them something very different. It rhymes with Sankey.
Does it? I'm not surprised. I've seen your wobbly data.
Wonky, not wobbly.
With a W. Wobbly. But yeah, but for me in a council perspective, and I keep talking like all I work with councils, I don't. I'm trying to get out of it as soon as I can, but I'm not. That's a joke. It's a joke for all my listeners and customers, all 12 of you.
What customers or listeners?
Listeners, yeah. But it's a way of showing, especially in contact centres when the flow comes in, that they're making changes, but the changes they're making might be beneficial to the one department, but they're actually detrimental to other areas. And I like them because it kind of shows that flow and how that works. And all you've done is actually deflect the call to someone else. You're sat there going, brilliant, I've not had any calls today, but Dave sat next to you has been on the phone all day answering calls, and you're wondering why he's so busy, and you're brilliant. And it's because you've deflected them all to him. So I like them for that reason, but let's not talk about Gantt charts. Someone tried to sell me a Gantt chart last week.
No, my God.
I had to look at one.
Read the room.
I know, I had to look at one as part of a project. So your first thing is Google free Gantt chart opener. And then I found one, got the Gantt chart open so I could actually look at it, realised there was absolutely nothing in it that was any use whatsoever at all, closed it again. But obviously that had set me an account up. So then some poor girl had then been emailing me every day for about 3 weeks asking me if I wanted to buy their Gantt chart tool. And it's been like, yeah, I'll send you a copy of my paper that I wrote about why I hate Gantt charts.
What did she say about that?
Nothing, I didn't send it. I'm not that cruel. I just said it's not something I'm looking at right now. I'm very polite to people, Richard.
Shall I come back to you in a few weeks? No,
that was not to be worth your while. You'd be better off spending your time talking to other people
who love a Gantt chart.
Yeah, whose lives revolve around a nice Gantt chart.
It's the way forward.
So, is it? Is it? Good. I'm going to disclaimer that, Richard. Good Gantt charts are fine.
Oh, yeah.
95% of ones I've seen are terrible.
That's twice you've backtracked in the last 5 minutes.
I know. I can't keep dissing people all the time. I'm a very happy, colourful, outgoing, positive person, Richard, who's never critical of anyone else or anything.
I've got that from you. Although we've never met in person, I definitely picked that up from you.
Definitely get that episode. Right, on that note, Richard, I think we'll call it a day. And,
what day do you want to call it?
I don't know. Before I get myself in any more trouble, I'm going to cut the recording.
It's normally me that gets in trouble for saying that.
I know. I'm trying to deflect it from you for a week.
Good, I could do with it.
We go back to normal next time.
All right, fair enough. I'll take that.
Okay, mate. Nice to speak to you again. I shall speak to you soon.
All the best.
Cheers. Bye.